Hello everybody, it's Aliyah and welcome to my YouTube channel. For today's video, it's a Q&A. I've had this planned for what seems like forever because I've always wanted to do a Q&A. I've had a lot of people tell me I should do one and I just haven't gotten around to it yet because it was basketball season and I was traveling a lot for that, and then it was finals week. So here I am now getting around to filming it. So enjoy the Q&A. So we'll get started with why did you pick sport management? I picked sport management because I love being around sports and I would be happy doing any job in the sports industry, whether it's sports reporting like I do now, or PR or media relations, or even being in the front office for a team. I think that would be so cool and so fun, and the options are literally endless, which is what I love about it. Something that I actually get asked a lot is why I chose sport management over journalism, and I always say the same thing every time people ask. I say that it's because I would be happy doing any job in the sport industry, even if it isn't sports reporting, but on the flip side, in the journalism world, I only want to do sports reporting. I don't want to do news or crime reporting or anything along those lines. So I just am so much happier being in the sports industry regardless of what I'm actually doing in it. So the next question is, what is my favorite thing about majoring in sport management? And it's really hard because I love everything about it. If we're just talking about Wichita State specifically, I could talk all day about the sport management program at Wichita State. My favorite thing is how all of our professors in the sport management program, they do other jobs other than just being a professor, so they get to introduce us to different areas and people within the industry. And that's why I love studying sport management as a sports reporter, because you literally learn about everything in the sports world, so I can take what I'm learning in class and apply it to something I'm reporting about. For instance, I was in sport governance and we learned about NCAA rules and complying with those, and about different transfers and what they have to go through. And then when I was reporting on Wichita State transfers, I was able to apply the knowledge that I learned in class to my reporting to keep the people that read my post more informed. So it's kind of a really cool thing how my schooling and my career go hand in hand like that, and that's just what I love about sport management. This question is, why did you choose the path you're on now career-wise? And it's a very similar answer to why I chose to study sport management, just because I love it. I love being around sports, and it's just, I grew up playing and watching sports, so it felt natural to me. I never want to dread having to work and not looking forward to work. I want it to be something that I'm passionate about, because then you never feel like you're actually working, and that's a beautiful thing. It just keeps you motivated when you're passionate, and when you love your job, it makes you do better, and people really can tell when you love what you do. And I definitely have to credit my parents with how I got started in this career, because in high school, when I first started thinking about college, I thought I was going to study business because I was always good at it. I went to Business Professional of America Nationals for 3 years. That was really fun. And I liked business, but I wasn't passionate about it. But I figured, okay, I'm good at this. I guess that's what I have to go into. But they told me that I don't just have to go into a field because that's what I'm good at. And they really just told me that the key to being happy is finding not only what I'm good at, but what I love to do and making a career out of it. And I think that's the main reason that I'm here doing this job and I'm in this profession. This question is the most memorable moment at Wichita State, covering something at Wichita State. And the most memorable thing for me, and this is a pretty big thing, was moving conferences from the Missouri Valley Conference to the American Athletic Conference. My freshman year was Wichita State's last year in the MVC. So I got to cover Arch Madness and travel to St. Louis for that, and I've gotten to experience the Missouri Valley. And then my sophomore year was the big transitional year from going there to now the American Athletic Conference. And that was by far the most memorable thing I've ever covered in college, given it was an entire year transition, because every sport, it was the first time ever playing in the American. And the competition was a lot better, and it was just overall a more, okay, how do I say this nicely? Overall, it was just a more established conference. Nothing against the Missouri Valley by any means, but it definitely was a step up to move to the AAC. Getting to cover that first year is just something that I'll never forget. So then, kind of along the lines of the last question, this next question is, what has been your favorite game to cover so far? That is a good question. I don't know.
6 hours later.
Alright, I know which one I'm going to say now. So my favorite game that I've gotten to cover actually was when we were in the Missouri Valley Conference. It was during Arch Madness, and it was a championship game. The game itself wasn't that fun to cover because the opposing team played a little dirty, and I was worried that some of our players were going to get injured because of it, and they were going to March Madness, so you really don't want your players getting injured in the conference tournament. After they won, all of the fans just stormed onto the court, and so you were kind of like stuck interviewing and videoing in the middle of this huge crowd of fans that are trying to cheer on the team. It was just such a fun environment, and I got some really funny videos like this one.
Hey.
How does it feel to be the champions?
Hey brother, how it feel to be a champion? Amazing. You tell me, how do it feel to be a champion, bro? Hey, you didn't take that home? No, it feels great, man. Get the win with my brothers. Yes, sir. And we get to go to March. Yes, sir. Madness. Yes, sir. And we gonna advance. Talk to me. And we gonna get dubs. What else? And dubs. Yeah.
And then after that madness, we went into the locker room to get some more interviews, and the players were in just such a good mood still, obviously because they won the championship game, and they're heading to March Madness, so it was just a great environment. And they were also eating pizza, and we were interviewing two players, Shaq Morris and Marcus McDuffie, and we asked them how it felt, and then another player, Daryl Willis, chimed in with the most memorable interview moment I think I've ever had.
It just feels great to know that you ain't got to worry about Selection Sunday. You know you're in the tournament and stuff.
Stress-free.
Stress-free.
It feels good eating this pizza. I agree with that. Focus on getting better next week and no stress, no.
Daryl couldn't have said it any better. It did feel as good as eating that pizza for those players, and that was definitely my favorite game just because of how fun it was, and you really got to see the athletes in their true, candid, excited form. And then the last question, kind of relating to my favorite games and stuff like that, is the most surreal moment I've had sports reporting. And there could definitely be a few answers to this. I have covered NBA games, and that's definitely surreal. But I think the most surreal moment was getting to cover a game at Madison Square Garden. First of all, I'm from New York, and the Knicks, they're my home team. I've grown up loving the Knicks. Getting to cover a game in an arena that you've grown up watching and loving and wanting to just go to a game there has been the most surreal moment of my life for my career. Especially a place like Madison Square Garden. Even if you're not from New York, and even if you don't like the Knicks, it's the most famous arena in all of sports, and it was just such a cool thing. I've always wanted to go to a game there, but then getting to actually cover a game and be behind the scenes and get to see how it operates, that was just the craziest moment of my life. That game was actually pretty recent. It's when those Shockers went to the NIT Final Four, and even though they lost in the Final Four game, I was still in New York because my plane ride wasn't for like a few days, so I had a lot of time to kill, and I was already credentialed to go back to Madison Square Garden for the championship game. So I reached out to this ESPN sideline reporter, Brooke, that I met at the game before, and I asked if I could shadow her and just see what she does and how she does it. And she said yes. She is like the coolest person I've ever met, and I got to sit with her the entire game, and she gave me some pointers and some advice. That was another surreal moment for me that took place at the same place that I'm talking about, because everyone knows that I want to be on ESPN. That's a big career goal for me. So getting to shadow someone on ESPN at Madison Square Garden, that for sure, most surreal moment ever. So moving on, this next question is, do you get nervous interviewing or meeting some of your favorite sports players? Yes, but no. That's something that is just normal to me now, getting to interview some really cool athletes. So I really don't get nervous. I think the most important thing to remember is they're human beings just like we are, and if you act like they're normal people, they will actually appreciate that so much more than if you act like they're some big celebrity. If you just talk to them like a friend, or like they're another person just casually talking to, then it makes them more comfortable. It makes them feel like you appreciate who they are as a person and not just an athlete. So I don't really get nervous when I talk to athletes. I have definitely gotten, not nervous, but yeah, some butterflies about interviewing some of the athletes. I've interviewed Enes Kanter when he played for the New York Knicks, and I've also introduced myself to Russell Westbrook, and yes, that seems so scary. If you would have told me a few years ago that I would be in that position, I would have been so nervous for it. But I think my experience interviewing different people on all of the levels helps me realize that all of these athletes are just normal people like us. Except for LeBron James. He's like a superhuman, but we won't talk about that. I haven't been in the position to interview him, but I'd probably get nervous for that one. He's not human, I swear. Last question about being nervous is, what do you do if you are nervous for an interview? And I do at times catch myself getting nervous for an interview, not really because of who I'm interviewing. It could just be because of the circumstances. Like, I get nervous. The interviews I get the most nervous for are the ones after a big loss, and those are the worst, especially if it's a season-ending loss, such as when you're playing in a tournament. And that's what I truly get nervous for. I've done it enough now where I don't get nervous like I used to, but it still just kind of makes me feel anxious, because the last thing those players want to do is talk about why they lost or how they lost or what they could have done better or anything like that. So I get really nervous about interviewing in those situations. Other situations, if I ever find myself getting nervous, I just remind myself that, you know, the questions I'm going to ask and the story that I'm doing and the way I'm approaching it is going to be good. I don't like second guessing myself, so I just try to stay aware when I am starting to doubt myself and put an end to it early so that I'm not nervous, because I think that's what causes a lot of nerves for people, is just second guessing your ability and yourself. So the biggest thing is to just be confident, and then you won't get as nervous. This question is, favorite soccer player ... ever. I'm actually going to answer that question in two parts. So as a fan, my favorite soccer player was Ron Baker, and that's because I was number 31 in every sport growing up. And with him being number 31, I was like, wow, look, another number 31, and he's actually really good. So I became a pretty big fan, and I loved watching him play. Sadly, his last year playing was the year right before I got to Wichita State, so I didn't cover him while he was in college, but he's been so nice to me, and he always gives me interviews every time I see him. So it's now transitioned from me being a fan of his to now us working in the same industry, which is the sports industry, and me getting to interview him and cover him. So that's been a cool transition, but he's always just been my favorite player. And then my favorite soccer player to cover was Landry Shamet. I covered him for 2 seasons before he left for the NBA, and he is the most down-to-earth player. He's so genuine and very respectful, and that it speaks volumes about his character. So it's been a privilege getting to cover him, getting to know him, and I'm just so proud of everything that he's doing in the NBA. He is going to be back in Wichita for a short period of time over the summer for his camp, so I'll be getting to do some interviews and content with him, so stay tuned. But yeah, he's just nicest person I've ever met, and it makes it so great that he's doing so well and is so successful, because I always saw that potential in him. I know a lot of people, when he declared for the draft, thought he wasn't ready, but I always knew he was. So seeing someone that you believed in and that you've worked with for so long make it as big as he did is just amazing. So he's definitely been my favorite player to cover. We got a high school sports question. What is my favorite high school sport to cover? I know what a lot of you guys are thinking. You're probably thinking I'm going to say basketball, but that is not the case for high school sports. My favorite thing to cover for Varsity Kansas, which is Wichita Eagle, is soccer. I love soccer so much. It makes me angry when people think soccer is boring because it is one of the most exciting sports ever, but a lot of people here in America aren't as invested in soccer as they are in other countries, but I love it. I credit my love for soccer to my little brother 100%. He is only 11 years old, but he is such a soccer stud. He is so good. He's really talented. I'm not just hyping him up because he's my brother. So as he's growing up, I've been attending almost all of his soccer games, and I travel to tournaments with my family to watch him play, and that's how I really started understanding soccer and appreciating it. So getting to cover that for the Eagle has been so much fun. And I know you guys didn't ask for my second favorite sport, but football would be right behind soccer because Wichita State does not have a football team, as we know. But it's been so cool getting to see the culture around high school football. I mean, I participated in that culture when I was in high school, but seeing it from a different perspective as a reporter is so much fun because everyone around the area gets so involved into their high schools. Everyone loves a good high school football game, so I've definitely enjoyed getting to cover those too. Is all for today. Thank you so much for watching this video, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel because there's a lot of unique and exciting content that I have planned for this summer, and follow me on social media to stay up to date with all of those things.